So let me take you through the front page of the Star newspaper. Raila calls crisis meet as Azimio split over report. Raila calls crisis meet as Azimio split over report. Individual MPs from Odinga camp have termed it underwhelming, and so far it does not address lowering the cost of living. Eric, you must be a happy person. Were you the author of this headline?
No. I think
because you said the cost of living is not captured in that report, and here we have it on the front page of the Star newspaper. There you go. Eric, go ahead. What's the front page?
I think we had a meeting of minds with the editor of that newspaper.
Clearly.
Because the reality is what led people to go to the streets, or rather led by Azimio, was the major issue of cost of living. And you have seen Mother Karua has said that for the simple reason that the cost of living is not in that report, or rather was not substantially captured, she does not support those talks. We also saw the bolting of Eugene Wamalwa, who Ishongwa, the majority leader, accuses of having lied he was going to Kinshasa, and made, I think there either was no flight, or for some weird reason he did not make it to Kinshasa. But I think the cost of living was, to me, in terms of the bulk of the discussion, I think the report is underwhelming vis-a-vis why people went to the streets to demonstrate, and having some Kenyans who lost their lives.
Okay. Nyamongo, Naftali? Raila calls crisis meet as Azimio split over report. Is it underwhelming as far as the cost of living is concerned?
Yeah, you see, the cost of living was one of the items. Was one of the items. So when you single it out as superior than the other items, then you get it wrong. Remember, not all items could come out with the full agreement. And as far as I'm concerned, the cost of living has been dealt with heavily by the Kenya Kwanza. Because the cost of living, as far as the government is concerned, is not a short-term agenda or policy. It is a long-term, where production and value addition has been what? Contemplated. So from where I sit, the reason why you see scanty details about the cost of living is because, honestly, the government is working on it.
What if we put it this way? Is it going to be used as a political stepping stone? Because if you solve the issue of cost of living, then it means that everybody is going to relax. There will be no political fertile soil for the politicians to, to step on, to cultivate, to politic, and to talk. This is going to be their talking point for the next couple of months or even years to come.
By who? By who?
By the political class.
Is it going to be a political step? By who? By the Kenya Kwanza or the Azimio case? By who? Azimio. By Kenyans?
Azimio. Both sides. Because if you had what Kamiani Shungo said, Ndini Nyoro talked about it over the weekend, he said that nothing to do with cost of living was captured. So it's already a political fodder for all of them.
You know, Victor,
yes,
part of the challenge with the cost of living is that it is always a moving target. You
cannot locate it.
We saw the CS the other day going to supermarkets to check on the price of unga. Then you also saw reports that after he left the supermarkets, there were reports circulating that those were actually promotions and were not the actual cost of unga prices. My point being, cost of living is, like when you dribble, when you're playing football and you're dribbling, just when you get to the goal shifts. So you'll always be playing against a moving target. So in terms of the issue of cost of living, it is, if I was in opposition, it is one of the best issues to hold on to. Why? Because it is not possible. Today when you solve the price of unga, tomorrow we move to the price of fuel. When you solve the issue of price of fuel, tomorrow we'll go to the cost of fertilizer. When you sort the issue of cost of... So my point is that, unfortunately, when it comes to cost of living, there is no silver bullet that can cure the issue of cost of living to come down. Because what will happen ultimately is that when you solve the issues of food, then you go to the issues of education. And I agree with him that in terms of cost of living, there needs to be a long-term plan and a long-term view. But in terms of being fodder for politics, then you cannot solve that issue so long as it is a political issue.
Let's narrow it down and talk about the issue of scrapping off the housing levy. What was so hard in doing that, Naftali? Just to scrap it off completely and say we're not going to have it, and that remains as that.
Okay, number one, then we should look at what were the benefits of it, the projected, the estimated value of that thing. Was it going to work for us? So then, by us compelling the bipartisan to pull it down, will it also work for us? You see, any nation anywhere, a nation cannot grow without money. And this money is from the people. And the money from the people is what we call what? Tax. Developed nations globally, they are at the current position because people use their money to fund government projects. The government cannot use any other money apart from what it gets from the people themselves. So if we deny our government that backup from our personal perspective as far as tax is concerned, then it means we are demoting the very government which we have acknowledged in our constitution and the laws established.
Okay. Let me take you very quickly on the front page again, still on the Star. Kenya, Pipeline and KICC among 11 state farms line up for sale. Nyamongo and Eric, if you have some saving somewhere, you can.
I think it's,
you can run and get one for yourself.
Yes, you know, if you have resources now, is the best time to start seeing which parastatal best suits your investment interests.
Yes.
You know, there is Kenya Pipeline that is on offer. So long as we live in this country, we'll always consume fuel.
Yeah.
You know, there is a Mwea Rice Millers. I saw it's also on offer. But most interesting is I've also seen KICC is on offer. And the reason why I say that is very interesting is because Kenyans have a history with KICC. You remember when the NAC government took over in 2002, one of the first things they did was storm KICC, because there were people who had actually made houses out of that monument, and especially during the KANU regime. And reclaiming back KICC was a tall order. But now I can see that it is also up for sale.
Yeah.
And this is to say, some of those parastatals consume a lot of money from the taxpayers. And in return, they do not offer any valuable services. But there are also parastatals that don't make a lot of money, but are of strategic national interest. For instance, Kenya Seed Company. You know, people went to court. There is a time government had allowed the issue of GMO. People went to court, and that I think is still undergoing the normal court process. But you need quality control. You know, as a country, we need to determine the kind of food that we are going to eat. And therefore, some of those parastatals are very strategic. They might not necessarily make money for us. I think it's important that government adopts the view that it's not every parastatal that does not make money that needs to be shut down. Some of them are of strategic interest to the welfare of Kenyans.
Perfect. On the front page of the Daily Nation, court suspends new health plan. Court suspends new health plan. Petitioner argues that it is illegal to deny Kenyan services for failing to register for the fund. And now, the judge halted the process, saying that a judge yesterday granted orders halting the implementation of the Social Health Insurance Fund Act, the Primary Healthcare Act, and the Digital Healthcare Act, dealing a blow to President William Ruto's push to effect the new health plan that seeks to make it mandatory for every family to contribute a percentage of their income to the fund. Court suspends new health plan. That's on the front page here. Raila queries KCP integrity as parents sue. We have got a number of parents here and students who went to court yesterday suing the Attorney General, the CS for Education, as well as the Examination Council. That is over 200 students, parents and students as well, from pupils from Set Green Hill Academy, Kitengela, and etc. They went to court. Raila up. That is Raila queries KCP integrity as parents sue. Up for sale. State seeks to privatize 11 parastatals. We've handled that. But on the front page of the Daily Nation, Nyamongo could suspend new health plan.
Yeah, you see, I have a problem with the negligence. Yeah. When you look at the English
you have a problem
common
with
law,
negligence.
Yeah, negligence. You see, negligence is a very big problem as far as the English common law is concerned.
Yes.
And the Kenyan basic structure doctrine is borrowed heavily from the English common law. Now, negligence is failure to act with the prudence that a reasonable person would exercise under the same circumstances. You see, many Kenyans neglect. Many Kenyans neglect. People were told that sit down and analyze these leaders whom you are going to elect. Sit down and project your vote, because your vote will count. It will impact your life. But people do not listen. People want to go to populism. Who shouts more and who has shenanigans to please them. You see, there must be that judgment by every one of us based on observable phenomena and uninfluenced by emotions and personal prejudices. Many people were disliking the Honorable Raila Odinga, and they have never even seen him personally. Many people were disliking the Honorable William Ruto, and many of them did not get the chance to interact. You see, there are always options for us. It is the constitution and the representation, the representation of the people is our only mandate. So this is the consequences of our own choices. But let me tell you, when you read a memo by George W. Bush, he talks about choices, consequences, and comebacks. That choices have consequences. But out of these consequences, there is always comeback. So it is time for the people of Kenya to sit down and see where did the rain begin beating us, so that we can recall. Why? Article 1 of the Constitution envisages sovereignty of the people. What does it mean? When you see sovereignty and sovereign, there is no difference. The only difference is sovereignty is a noun, sovereign is an adjective. But in whichever way, sovereign means independent. We are independent. Sovereign means self-governing. We are self-governing. Sovereign means autonomous. Autonomous means we are not controlled by outside forces. It is us who put the government there and who can eliminate it. And we have two ways. One is directly. Two is through our representatives. So if our representatives, the legislature, fails us, then the people of Kenya have that power or right to give orders and make decisions directly. But when we do it directly, it is not mass action. Mass action is different from demonstration. In fact, mass action has not been contemplated in our laws. Mass action is a theory which is found in sociology. What we have in Article 37 are, number 1, assembly. Number 2, demonstration. Number 3, picketing. And then number 4, presenting petitions to public authorities. An example to present petitions to public authorities is like now the Bipartisan, where you have mediation. But the bone of contention here, in all these aspects, you have to be non-violent. Why? The words which the framers of the Constitution of Kenya uses is peaceably and unarmed, meaning depicting the posture of non-violence. Non-violence is that is the use of peaceful means and not force to bring about any change in a society, especially social and political. So we have the chance to either take this government back home directly or wait to use now our vote. But remember, Martin Luther King Jr. says, sometimes wait can mean never.
Sometimes wait
can mean never. So this is the time. If we think that this government is not working for us, let us put down our tools and send it home.
Naftali, sometimes wait can mean never. All right. So for us not to be in that state of Martin Luther, let's take a break so that we don't say never. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
As NHIF changes begin, mass sackings loom as NHIF changes begin. Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Nyakumicha has told health fund workers that their jobs are not guaranteed in the new scheme. In 2 months, those who will leave will receive their letters. Not a good way, mostly when it's on the front page of a daily. Mass sackings loom as NHIF changes begin. Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Nyakumicha has told health fund workers that their jobs are not guaranteed in the new scheme. In 2 months, those who will leave will receive their letters. That is on the front page of the Standard newspaper. Parents in court, 1 from 1, selection halted. Cabinet sets aside 7 billion shillings for floods. That is the meeting, that's the resolution in a meeting that was held yesterday by President William Ruto at State House in Nairobi. Still on this, what Ruto-Raila proposals on law mean to hustlers? There is a graphical illustration of some of the proposals and what does it really mean for you. You can take a look at that. But gentlemen, let's get straight into it. So, after the talks now, what really happens? I want us to deviate from whatever was discussed from that particular bipartisan talks at the Bomas. But what is now left for Wanjiku? Because the winner has to be Wanjiku. Whichever way you look at it, where is the stand for Wanjiku? Eric?
Well, one is to say that this report will the bipartisan report will be submitted to Parliament for concurrence and for approval. But if you look at a majority of the proposals that have been made there, a majority of them are structural in nature and do not necessarily have a direct consequence on the common mwananchi. And let me give an example. So, like, there is a proposal for the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary.
Right.
You know, that in itself, it's good for say, ethical, in future elections, it's good for ethical balancing. You know, the way politicians coalesce around formations and say, we will give you this, we will give you that. So that is good in terms of us moving forward and coexisting. That could be seen in that perspective. But in terms of directly what goes to, say, Wanjiku's pockets, for instance, one of the proposals was to cut expenditure, government travel expenditure by 50%. Now, there is a proposal in that report that the money that will be saved should be rechanneled towards supporting indigents, those are poor people, supporting the vulnerable people in society, and the elderly. But you remember, austerity measures are not a new phenomenon in government. If you recall, during when Uhuru was a finance minister, there was a lot of rallying and calling for austerity measures. To an extent, the government went and bought Volkswagens for cabinet secretaries, and it was deemed that those ones consume less fuel than the bigger guzzlers. But over time, as we move, you realize that you know, old habits usually die very hard. And therefore, even what we say here that 50% will be saved and will go towards assisting the poor and the vulnerable, it's a good proposal. However, the implementation in terms of realigning the budget framework in Parliament, that in itself might take a bit of time. So in terms of what really benefits common mwananchi, and that's why I say the outcome of the report in itself is underwhelming. And let me say this maybe lastly. You know, sometimes we underestimate the president in terms of him being a politician. In December last year, he made several proposals to Parliament. And key among those proposals was 90% what you have seen in this bipartisan talks report. And therefore, what the president had proposed then is what finds its way into That included, having ministers in, having cabinet secretaries in parliament,
yes,
having the official opposition as an office, as a recognized legal office. Most of the things that he had proposed are what we find, and that's why I believe the former Prime Minister has said in his remarks that he has received the report. He's yet to read it, but will give us feedback on Thursday. But going by what his lieutenants are saying, right, left, and center, sometimes when you want to know how a puppet is going to act, you have to check what the marionette is doing.
Right, sir.
So I believe then that in terms of what goes really into Wanjiku, I think Wanjiku, I love the Wanjiku of Kenya. She's very patient, always hoping. The way a hyena, there is a saying that, a hyena always follows the hand, hoping that one day the hand will drop. I believe that's sometimes the Wanjiku of Kenya in terms of the political narrative.
All right.
We are always following something, hoping that it will give us results. But on the outcome of these talks, yes, we have a good environment to coexist. But in terms of, and maybe that's a good consequence, but in terms of what directly affects us in terms of our livelihoods, I find the report very underwhelming.
Nyamongo, what's left for Wanjiku? At the end of the day, the talks largely ought to have been Wanjiku oriented. So what's on the plate for Wanjiku?
So the Wanjiku here, I'm thinking from where I sit, that Wanjiku is learning.
Wanjiku is learning?
Wanjiku is learning, yeah. And whether Wanjiku is getting right or not, Wanjiku is learning. You see, there is that process. Every organism passes by some process. There is egg, larva, pupa, adults, something like that. We as a nation also, we are going through some processes. And our people have begun to learn some of the aspects which they couldn't know. Why? We have now a broad what? A scope as far as access to information about the government is concerned. Yeah, we can access these things and then be able to subject them into an analysis the way we are doing it.
Exactly.
Because initially we couldn't. But now we can sit and somehow try to come up with some suggestions. Now, in regard to the report may be appealing to your mind or pleasing to their ears. But for Wanjiku, was the report anchored in the national values and the principles of governance?
That really reminds me what he said, that Wanjiku is very patient. For those number of months and days and number of sittings they had, Wanjiku was waiting to see how that talk is going to impact his or her life directly with some kind of immediate sense of urgency. But what do you think right now is running through the mind of Wanjiku? That's my question.
You see, Wanjiku is learning. And the process of learning here is about public policies. Whatever you have had at Bomas, at long last, it has to be structured into policies. So that now it can become a plan of action for the government. A government cannot operate without a policy. But a major aspect of public policy are the people, through public participation. So were the people given the opportunity to go there and air their views? Or will the people be given an opportunity during the presentation of these views in Parliament to also give their weight behind it? That is what we call national values and the principles of governance.
What do you foresee?
Of course, I see people being called and invited, come, we discuss, but at long last, there are some few people who will sit down and come up with their own view at long last. Remember, I had indicated earlier that the BBI, which we were given as the people, was not the real BBI, which was intended by the decision makers. There were two documents. One was hidden, one was given out. Believe you me, Victor. Victor, this is Kenya and we know how it operates.
Do you have these copies?
So let me give you.
I'd love to see the original.
So the Bombers of Kenya thing, the Bombers of Kenya thing, they are the main drafters. We have the main drafters hidden. So whatever they are giving to the public is what they want the public to know. But at long last, if they find an opportunity now, they will come up with their own bipartisan view and objectives. Whether it will give relief to Wanjiku, I don't know. But let us keep on learning that whichever the case, it is the people of Kenya that have been vested the power, the sovereign power. All sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya, and it shall be exercised only in accordance with this constitution.
Okay, I like what you put it, but Eric, on the political aspect, Wanjiku is learning, Wanjiku is patient, but now what is the political weight that this has? Remember, Raila Odinga is going to have a meeting today and tomorrow, and make his, he said, I've not read the report, so give me time, I'm going to read it, then come up with my resolution. On the other hand, the president says that I will implement, to the last point, the report from that bipartisan talks team. What are you trying to read from these two gentlemen?
There is a game called the game of musical chairs, where you rotate chairs until finally one person is left sitting.
Oh, the German roulette.
Yes, and the others are left standing. I think Kenyan politicians have mastered the art of playing that game with the Kenyans to an extent that at the end of the day, it is the politician who is left seated and Kenyans are left standing. And why I say this is because, remember, in between last year and this year, this is the second bipartisan talks. The first bipartisan talks actually collapsed because they could not agree. Then, towards the culmination of writing the report of this second bipartisan talks, there were rumors that, they did not agree on a number of issues and that they were going back. Azimio said they were pulling out of the discussions that they were having, and now they were going back to the drawing board or going back to the masses. Now, what that tells me is this. At the end of the day, depending on what opposition wants, because remember, this is more or less a creation of the Maandamano movement that we had that culminated into the government accepting to have the bipartisan talks. To a large extent, what happens to these talks will be influenced by what the opposition, that is the minority, will want to happen. If there is, for instance, Raila wakes up tomorrow and says, look, we've read the report, we don't like the contents of the report, we would want to amend certain sections of the report. And the Kenya Kwanza administration says, we had a discussion, you appended your signatures, we are no longer going to discuss. You see, what happens now is that Wanjiku has been returned to a place that Wanjiku did not expect to be taken back to.
Which is?
There have been calls, for instance, that they have said, if we do not agree, we are going back to Maandamano.
Okay.
Now, who is going to Maandamano?
Case, gentlemen, you agree with me that the cost of living was quite pertinent?
No, remember, when the discussion started, the main issue, actually there were several issues. One of them was open the server, okay, which they have agreed that the audit of the 2022 general elections will happen. The second one was bring down the cost of unga, bring down the cost of fuel, thereby bringing down the cost of living. Now that one appears to be contentious. Why? Because one, bringing down the cost of unga is a consequence of many factors. And as Mio was saying, bring back the subsidies. Government is saying we cannot bring back, we cannot subsidize consumption. So in terms of the cost of living, it is an area that I said is a dicey issue because the parameters are always changing. And therefore, it is incumbent upon Azimio, for the sake of the country, to figure out whether what they have agreed. You remember, we were not in the talks and doing the report. We submitted just like he's saying, we were given an opportunity.
Saying that, like in the BBI, we had two documents, of which I'm really so keen in getting the two documents and compare. Like in this case, do you want to tell me that during that talks at the Bomas of Kenya, whatever was being floated to the public is not exactly what we've received at the end of the report.
No, actually, I've read the entire report. Yes. And I must say they've done a good job in terms of capturing the submissions that were given to them by the Kenyan public. You must give it to them. They have done a good job. They have also, as a consequence of what was given to them, they have come up with recommendations,
yes,
including bills that will be submitted to Parliament for consideration. Now, this is why it is important. For every bill that goes through the National Assembly or that goes through the Senate, there is also a public participation process. So this process in itself is not an end in itself. It will still be subjected to further scrutiny,
yes,
by our representatives, or under Article 1 by ourselves as Kenyans.
Okay. Naftali, so what runs through the mind of the two gentlemen? Because they are the two prefects, so to quote unquote, and Wanjiku is waiting for the end result, the white smoke. Raila is having a meeting today and tomorrow, and then he's going to make his pronouncement. The president said, I'm done. The report is final. I don't want to delve into it. So give it to me, implementation will be done. What do you really think is running through the minds of the two gentlemen?
Yeah. The two gentlemen are very visionary, the two of them. And I'm saying this because all of them have a backing which is unquestionable,
yes,
which is unmistakable. You see, some of the lieutenants of the Honorable Raila Odinga have said, if Baba reads, then we have read. Remember? So there is no need for us to read. Our leader, whom we believe in, has read for us. So that is a tragedy, number one. Number two, when you see the side of William Ruto, if William Ruto speaks,
the president,
let me ask you, whom have you ever seen again speaking against the president? None. So it means we are treading on a dangerous ground. In his own words, and you will kindly allow me to quote Adolf Hitler, I believe that what has been made by man can be altered by another man. So it means what Raila Odinga projected to do, maybe when he could become the president, is now being altered by William Ruto, whom they didn't think that he will become the president. Remember his wordings and during his major rallies. Number three, mimi si mjinga. Number two, mimi si wazimu. Number one, mimi si mulevi. So he could talk, but these three could come out at the last. Even what he is now doing right now, he understands the opponent. Let me tell you, William Ruto understands the opponent. That is why he has gone far to say, I'm going to implement every detail of what the bipartisan has come up. But this side again, he's saying, let us analyze it. And then, why? Why are you analyzing? And you sent your people there, you are giving them your counsel, go and speak this and this. What are you again now subjecting yourselves to?
Talks will continue.
Can I tell you politically what will happen?
Go ahead.
You know politically what will happen. I can tell you.
I see how Naftali is trying to play smart with that, but it's okay. Fine. Go ahead, Eric.
Yes, you know, I'll tell you what will happen. In my opinion, Kalonzo was the leader of the delegation.
Exactly.
In those talks. So, if the members of your delegation say they do not agree with a report, which you yourself were leading, what are they telling you? If we give you head of delegation and you lead us to a discussion, and then we go behind the scenes and disappear and say, you start hearing us, behind the door, everywhere saying, we are going to read that report, then we will make up our mind. Remember, we were part of the process together, because I believe Raila Odinga is the person that nominated, together with the Azimio coalition, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka and Opiyo Wandayi to be part of this delegation. So it was incumbent upon them when they were discussing, they were briefing the principals on the subjects of discussion. Now, when the report is ready, and your principal says, I have received, I have not read, but I will give a response. Then your lieutenants elsewhere start saying, you know, this thing, we don't agree with it because cost of living is not there. In essence, they are telling you that
you failed in black and white.
They are telling Kalonzo Musyoka that you failed us. And now, why? The question is, why would they want to sacrifice, in my opinion, Kalonzo Musyoka after having worked that hard? Why would they want to discredit a report which he has chaired? And remember, we saw him and Dishongwa together making a press briefing on whatever it is that they have agreed. Why would Azimio, and you remember there is a time newspapers reported that they were going to support Kalonzo Musyoka. It did not even take more than 2 days for the lieutenants to come out and say, we were misquoted. That is not what we said. Therefore, in my opinion, my considered opinion is that at the end of the day, these bipartisan talks have a bearing towards the coming general elections.
Eric, you're overthinking.
No. Wait, I'm not overthinking, and I'll tell you why. If you want to know I'm not overthinking,
you are overthinking.
Ask yourself why. Ask yourself why. Number one, why do we need to sort the issue of commissioners now? Why has it taken 2 chapters in the book on the issue of the commissioners alone? Remember, they are recommending an interim commission.
Yes.
An interim commission, caretaker commission, as they substantively appoint a commission. Isn't it too early to start talking about an electoral commission?
We don't have commissioners.
We don't have commissioners.
We don't have commissioners. No, I know we do not have, because the ones that are there resigned. But I'm just telling you, when we say audit the server first, okay? Why we are auditing the server is because of the past. Correct?
Okay.
We want to know what happened in the past, because we believe we won, or we believe we did not win, whichever the case. We are auditing the past.
Wait. But we still have to go back to the issue of commissioners. IBC has no office bearer right now.
Yes, we do. And remember,
we even have some constituencies that
some constituencies,
yes. And some wards, and some wards also that do not have representatives.
So it's quite urgent that we have.
It's quite urgent that we have commissioners. But remember, the issue. You see, you must not put it as a out of context in terms of it is a stand-alone thing. When we talk about IBC, remember, after every election, we always talk about IBC, even when they are sitting commissioners. And when they are sitting commissioners, remember, like Isaac Hassan, they were sitting commissioners. It was fully constituted. What did we say? That we did not need those commissioners. We need new commissioners. And therefore, I'm telling you, you know, a good politician, he has said something very important. William understands his opponent. So as a good politician, immediately you're elected into office, yes, there is the issue of delivery, but there is also the issue of
the next election.
The next election.
Naftali, I still think he's overthinking.
Yeah, before him, you know, Victor, I'm a certified professional mediator. So I mediate privately. The most importantly, I have been accredited by the Kenyan judiciary through the court annex mediation. I sit at the court annex mediation. One of the principles for mediation is that because the decisions have come from the disputants themselves, they had a dispute and they have sat, you have gone through the mediation process, the plaintiff has spoken, the defendant has spoken. You see, at long last, the mediator or that group will come up with what? A report. This report is themselves who are generating. So one of the principles of this mediation is that out of that settlement, the full, whether it was a full agreement or partial agreement, it is not subject for appeal. So it is deposited in the judiciary, in the record as a judgment. Why? It came from the people themselves. It came from the disputants themselves.
Yes.
If Azimio had their representatives there, whether Kalonzo Musyoka, William, Eugene Gombalwan, they got their view documented. There is no way Kimani Ichung'wah can say, no, let us have this one. It is a one thing. It was a bipartisan platform.
But did you listen to what Eric said? It's more of like a setup. Eric,
a setup by who and how? You see,
no,
let me tell you, Eric.
When I send you to do a task, okay, and when you deliver the task, I disown whatever it is.
Who disowned? Is it Kalonzo Musyoka or the outside guys?
Let me tell you.
Who disowned?
It is on record. Eugene Wamalwa has disowned the report.
Why disown a report which you have?
Which is exactly the point. Why did he disown the report? Eugene Wamalwa is on record. Martha Karua is on record disowning the report. Raila himself has said he has received a copy which he has not read. So the question is, why would participants to a process disown the results which they themselves have generated?
Now, Victor, let me tell you. When you look at the camp of Azimio,
yes,
Azimio, we view it as Negros in this aspect. So when you look at Malcolm X was one of the leaders who voted for the civil rights movement. But he categorized the Negros into two. He says there are house Negros and there are field Negros. So he went ahead to explain that a house Negro says our government, but a field Negro says the government. He explained further, saying that we cannot say our government when our parents work from can't see in the morning until they can't see in the evening. So it is the government, not our government. So when you find Azimio leaders sitting down and out of their judgment based on observable phenomena and uninfluenced by emotions and personal prejudices, yes, they come up with a team, convinced that this is our best team. It is the best among the equals. Then at the end, they condemn the same team which they chose. Then it means they have a problem themselves. And if they have a problem themselves, they are going to swallow it themselves. Okay. We are not going to contribute. If it is them, it is them. You know, it is the leaders, but we are the people, and we are looking at them.
This for all of you. There's going to be a meeting today. Raila is going to meet his lieutenants, and tomorrow. Give me your projections, gentlemen, a day after tomorrow. Whichever day they are going to make, their pronouncements on this, not there, but his pronouncement on this. Because President has said, I'm good to go. But Raila Odinga, actually the entire nation is now waiting for Raila to speak. So what do you think is going to happen? A day after tomorrow? Maybe Friday moving forward? The next reaction to the litmus test paper.
You know, Victor, in my family lineage, there is no prophet. So I am taking a big risk in terms of forecasting what might happen. But I'll tell you, based on history,
right?
They are going to agree with some parts of the report, but majorly they are going to disagree with it, and they will say that their views, especially on cost of living, were not considered, and they will give government an ultimatum.
Do you think they are going to turn down the positions?
Which the
officers created?
Yes, they are going to turn down so that they don't look like they want to be beneficiaries, but they will not stop the process from going ahead. Did you just say yes
because I asked?
No. You see, the beauty is we live in this country. Right. We know what happens. So because the cost of living was a major concern, they are going to say it was not factored, therefore they do not disagree. But what they will not do as crafty politicians, they will not stop the parliamentary process from proceeding that will actually create the positions.
Okay, Naftali.
Yeah, the positions are going to be created, whether Azimio likes it or not. Why? This is that process. We went to Bomas, we have come to Parliament, you have your representatives here, we have again deliberated on it, so I sent it to them.
Okay.
These are now public policies. So whether you like it or not, you see, this is not the BBI. BBI, William Ruto rejected it and it worked for him.
But do you think there's some bits of BBI
there's an aspect. But remember, BBI was kind of imposed to the throat. That unless you accept it, it is final. It is a constitutional moment. Where? You saw it, Victor. We were here. So this is not BBI. Remember, the person whom we are dealing with has what? Hard-headed intelligence. Very pragmatic. The Honorable William Ruto. So he's going to pass these positions whether they like it or not. That is number one. Number two, unless Azimio guys again settle down, because we see now divisions in their camp only. There's no division here.
Okay.
So unless they sit down and restructure themselves, you see what they have only. What makes the Honorable Dairo Odinga becomes relevant is this aspect of Mandamano. And to him, it's not even Mandamano, it's mass action. That is what makes him relevant. So that is where he is going, because that is what makes Raila Odinga relevant.
Let's take a break.
But in regard, thank you.
Let's take a break. And to come back, we're still going to go to the final list on what you should expect. And I really want to get your opinion on this one. What are some of the proposals do you think is going to be effected? You're going to agree on? That's as far as the meeting today and tomorrow is concerned. Do you think Azimio is going to pick some and leave some? Eric and Naftali, please stay with me. We'll be right back with more. What a discussion here. Are you enjoying? Are you? I'm enjoying on your behalf. Okay, Eric and Naftali, we are coming to the tail end, and we are going to have crossing over to Radio Taifa. We expect very heated discussion there as well. But let me get your final remarks as this is concerned. So, quickly, what do you think are some of the things that probably Azimio is going to pick and whatever they are going to drop? The president said he's going to implement it in its entirety. So, go ahead.
One of the things that Azimio is going to accept is the issue of the Electoral Commission, because that is very pertinent.
And it's been expanded from 7 to 9.
Yes, from 7 to 9. And then there is a proposal on a committee that is the one that will select who will be the nine commissioners. There are a number of proposals, but finally they settled on sending representatives to pick commissions on Kenyans' behalf. That is constituting ISPAC, Law Society of Kenya, religious organizations, parliament, parliamentary groups, and so forth and so on. So I think that is one area that they are going to agree. The second issue is on the issue of Article 188 of the Constitution. Schedule 6, delimitation of boundaries is coming very soon. By March, that process should have been concluded. But remember, we don't have commissioners, so the process has kind of stalled, and it is a constitutional requirement that we must adhere to. And therefore, in the interest of the country, that they must agree on. So that will, of course, they will agree. The other issue they will agree on is the issue of cutting and revising budgets, especially travel. Now they are saying cabinet secretaries and government officials to travel economy class, so long as the trip is less than 4 hours, which now when you take a flight to Mombasa or to wherever, you'll be sitting with cabinet secretaries. Well, when there are 4 rows or 3 rows, part of your passenger will be a cabinet secretary, hopefully. So that is something they will agree on. But there are contentious issues that they will disagree. And one of them is the issue of cost of living. As I said, predominantly because cost of living is a moving target. You really can't place your finger on it. And for political survival, you need, the way when you chew a sugar cane, you always want to chew something to squeeze out whatever juice that is left. I think that will be the issue to do with cost of living. They will disagree on that, and I believe that is the next bone of contention.
Perfect. Naftali?
There are 2 agreements here.
There's something you've left out. The timeline for Supreme Court hearing of the petition?
Yes, from 14 to 21 days. That and especially being that the former premier has been a casualty, I think that's also something that I agree on.
There are 2 agreements here. The first agreement is private agreement.
The first agreement?
Private agreement. And there is another one which is public agreement. Private agreement has already been done. Public agreement is what we are waiting. Yeah, speculating. Let me tell you,
why do you surprise
we are in Kenya. We use history to predict the future. The Honorable Raila Odinga has been working like that. He goes with the private agreement, number one. He finishes with it. He does it like autonomously, himself and the guys, the opponents. So once he has finished with the private, now he comes to the public because he has genius in it, ingenuity. He has skills, that is superior skill which you can learn by study or observation from him. So already he has done a private agreement with the Honorable William Ruto that this is what we are going to pass. So private agreement, believe you me, has been done. Number two, public agreement is what now my brother has contemplated. So he's going to choose what is going to please his crowd.
After having...
Yes, after having done private agreement. That is now what we call the GINA, the political GINA of the Honorable Raila Odinga.
Eric Muturi.
Let me finish.
I'm told we're running out of time.
Thank you.
10 seconds, kindly.
10 seconds.
Yes.
So in case we have mass action is not contemplated in our constitution. What is contemplated is demonstration, assembly, picketing, and presentation of public. It must be non-violent. So in the event we have, now what we call humanitarian diplomacy will then come in, where the vulnerable during armed conflict will be taken care of. And this is now under international humanitarian law, pursuant to the Geneva Conventions. So let us be ready as humanitarian actors in the event of anything to save the vulnerable, who includes women, persons with disabilities, all the members of the society, children, the youth, minorities and marginalized groups.
Naftali Nyamongo, call yourself is a certified
professional mediator.
Professional mediator. Thank you so much
for
coming to the show. And Eric Muturi, who is also a leader in his own right. You vied for a political seat?
Yes, I did. And I want to thank the people of Kiambu.
Very well.
They did what they could. But you know, politicians never lose elections. It is votes.
You are politicians. You fight until the end.
You fight until the end.
Congratulations. You tried. You're better than some of us who never tried.
Please try sometime.
We'll think about it. We'll think about it. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. We are taking a break. But when we come back, you know what we are going to do? We are crossing over to Zinga, and the discussion is going to happen today with Dora Manya. This is going to be happening right now at the Radio Taifa. We are going to have that discussion with the Honorable Simon Chilugui talking about Mwaka Moja wa Hustler Fund. That is going to happen shortly after this. Stay with us. We are taking a break. After this, we are going straight to Dora Manya.
As a baby show.